Chapter 6. Is your child a king? Wow! Suzin, who entered the royal tree selection chamber, stood as if he was deeply impressed by the sight. Inside the huge hollow trunk of Tenju, it was like the inside of the mother's womb. And the planted trees were floating in dish-shaped like pots. The placement, size of the tree, and the shape of each bowl was erratically inconsistent. There were places where they were stuck together to form narrow passages, and there were ones floating alone. From somewhere in the sky, gentle sunshine poured down. The smell of the tree's fruit drifted in the room. This entire room was nothing but second-generation trees. Unlike Suzin, who was impressed by the sight, Kariko was really nervous and was repeatedly breathing deeply. The trees were the real rulers of Jurai. It was, in a way, the same as being brought to the throne. Come, greet them. Funaho put her hand over Kariko's shoulder to calm her. Oh, yes. With the ceremony of tree selection, one stopped in front of each tree and greeted them. If the tree returned the greeting, it became your partner. If there was no greeting, they would move to the next tree. And if they got to the last tree and received no greetings, they would head to the next zone, with the first-generation trees, or the zone of special trees such as the trees of Funaho and Misaki. Nice to meet you, my name is Masaki Kariko. Kariko corrected her posture and bowed to the first tree. Excuse me, Seina-sama. Ringo came into the house with Seina and Yuzaki's daughter to find Seina holding a baby. Oh, it's you, Ringo. Ringo was puzzled. Oh, Ringo-sama. Thank God, you're here to save me. Seina was relieved. What on earth is going on? Yuzaki is forcing me to spend time with her child. But I'm worried about my bad luck. Oh! Ringo realized the situation and changed moods. The problem was Seina had no one around to correct his bad luck, and looking after a child alone was asking for trouble. It was an emergency, just not the kind to do had led her to believe it was. I can't reach NB, I can't get in touch with anyone, and I can't get out of here. Moving large distances would attract disaster, and he couldn't leave the baby alone. Wow, this is bad. Yuzaki-sama should know better. Anyways, I'll change her diaper. Is there anything else? Can you get in touch with anyone else? I can't contact anyone, I already tried, but in the evening the girls are going to bring fuku, so we will have to do something until that time. Oh, hey. Ringo. Why exactly are you here anyways? What's that? She couldn't tell him why she was actually here. It's just... Seina lost track of the conversation as Mikage pulled at his face. Oh, sorry, but I can't say why I'm here. Well, whatever brought you here, you saved me. Thank you for coming. I wonder what she's going to look like in a few decades. Ringo thought while looking at Mikage. Ringo suddenly began to imagine the future. This place was a house used by those with a high stature to further develop one's relationship as newlyweds. They got to do housework by themselves and grow a small vegetable garden for food. It was a house that allowed ordinary people to live a normal life. And, even after the birth of children, there were many people who stayed there for a while to acquire a better emotional education. Oh, did Yuzaki tell you anything else? Like why she left you with Mikage? She just said she wanted to give us some alone time to get acquainted. Indeed, with Seina's luck, she probably won't come back till tomorrow. Ringo tried to access the transfer gate, but transfer to outside areas was shut off. In other words, they were trapped here. Well, I guess I'll be helping you until this evening. She looked at the baby. Seina, do you mind if I hold her? Yes, please. When Seina tried to pass Mikage to Ringo, she distorted her face and began to cry. Oh, sorry. Did I do something wrong? Ringo said sadly, but then a monitor with a milk bottle on it came up and sounded an alarm in front of Mikage. Oh, she's hungry. I'll get her some food. Please hold her for me. Seina left her with the baby and hurried to the kitchen. Seina brought back her baby bottle. Mikage took the baby bottle and began to drink with raging momentum as if forgetting to breathe. It's as if she were distressed in the desert, finally arriving at an oasis and drinking water. Luckily, she seems to have sensors monitoring her to make sure she's okay. There was a sensor that constantly monitored abnormalities such as needing milk, defecation, illness, so even Seina, who had no experience, knew what was wrong. Sena was relieved to see Mikage drink the milk, and then he grew interested in the baby bottle. That's the first time I've seen a baby bottle in space. The shape is surprisingly similar to the ones on the Earth. If people's shape and function are the same, there's not much need for a difference in shape, so I don't know what the baby bottles on Earth are like, but if there are technical differences, like the ingredients of milk, it doesn't affect the way the milk and the baby get together. If NB was there, it would be able to tell me more about it. The baby drank a big gulp, then took a breath. Pwah! Sena and Ringo looked at each other at the same time and started laughing. The atmosphere was fun. Mikage was happy and in a good mood. She was looking up at Ringo like she wanted Ringo to hold her. I'll go put the bottle back. Sena gently left so not to destroy that pleasant atmosphere. Sena went to the kitchen. The baby bottle was supposed to be put in a special washing opening. When he came back, he paused and stealthily watched what was going on in the room without disturbing the scene. Ringo was holding the sleeping baby and was staring at her lovingly. It was a sacred and beautiful sight. Ringo now had a different charm about her from the one he had felt on Imuum. Sena turned red from ear to ear. Calm down, calm down. Sena took a deep breath and restrained himself from shaking so that Ringo wouldn't notice. He went into the living room as if nothing had happened. Is she asleep? Yes, she's lovely, Ringo said. She quickly looked in Sena's direction. So, what do you think of the sleeping face of your future bride? She asked jokingly. About that, is it a custom on Jurai for parents to decide marriage like this so early? It depends on the time and the case. It also depends on one's position. There's not much difference from the Earth, but if Yuzaki-sama has decided it, then it is so. This child will most definitely choose Sena as a companion. Of course, if you're a disgusting jerk, it is also possible for her to refuse, but it's going to be hard to persuade her to believe that's true. But, at that time, Sena remembered Yuzaki's words. Well, I'll leave it up to her. Is that what she meant when she said she would leave it up to her? Oh, in that case, persuasion is impossible, isn't it? Someone may have already heard from someone, but in the upper part of Jurai and the academy, consultations are being held to decide matters of both your public and private life, including women. That decision must have been made officially. What, me? Yes, and your marriage partners. There's multiple. In Sena's hometown, monogamy is the law. I understand that it is difficult to accept easily, but it's dangerous to give someone like you, with your biased probability, to only one woman. Oh! Sena understood it all. It was cruel, especially if they suffered from being with Sena and if a child was born and Sena's bad luck was inherited, even more so. Well, that's right, I suppose. This fact was quite a shock, but one he had begun to think of since he went home. However, Sena's life was centered around that fact. Until recently, he had never even considered getting married, especially not getting married so soon. As far as marriage is concerned, it is still ahead of you, so I think that it is okay to think slowly about it. But there are circumstances like that which will happen, so Yuzaki will not withdraw her nomination of Mikage. I understood the meaning of that, but... Oh, why did she want you to change Mikage's diaper? Well, that wasn't something I was going to ask, but should I? A Jurian woman does not expose her skin to any other than her husband, so it's significant to be allowed to change the diaper. Ringo blushed and averted her gaze. Ringo showed her skin to Sena plenty on Imuum, so did Kariko and Sito. But she's a baby, I was asked to do it. How can you get something like that from something like this? Well, it's just part of Yuzaki's strategy. Would you mind explaining? Ha. When looking at Sena, who was puzzled, Ringo burst out laughing. She restrained herself when she realized Sena thought he was being made fun of. Did you just make a fool of me? Sorry, I thought you were kidding when you said you didn't know, but well. Ringo took a big breath and tried to restore herself, but as soon as she saw Sena's face, she began to laugh again. Actually, a member of the royal family was once forced to marry his wife, all because he had to change his future wife's diaper. It's a well-known story that actually happened. Of course, it's a story that everyone knows, so it's kind of a classic joke. Oh, I see. So you didn't believe I didn't know it? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have laughed like that. But it was so unexpected. It was such a well-known and predictable trap that it was like expecting Sena to step on a banana on the floor. Any normal person would recognize it as the oldest trick in the book, which is why she couldn't help but laugh. Do you not want the engagement? No, rather, for me marriage is a luxury option I can't afford. I would prefer this child choose a free future that is not bound by such constraints. To be sure, Mikage will have her own will to do so. But there is no guarantee if she becomes an adult for this child. No, for any human of Jurai to be the wife of a great hero is an honor, a happy thing. Eh? Sena was amazingly surprised, and he pointed at himself in disbelief. Of course. But am I a hero? Like that kind of hero? Impossible. What are you talking about, Sena? You are already a hero to Jurai. Even so, things just happened, because I was involved. None of it was because of my power as an individual. We are aware of that, but it is still true that you have personally overcome many obstacles. Who is to judge that you are a hero, Sena? It's not yourself but others, and the world has judged Sena-sama to be a hero. The world. The incident when Sena first came to space was massive, but thanks to that, the entire economy instantly boomed beyond anything anyone ever expected. Ringo, who kept Sito's finances, knew about this better than anyone. Tears of joy came to her eyes just remembering it. And the seed of the royal tree. The Jurian people cannot thank you enough for protecting our precious and important friend. That was no small feat. Well, that's true. Of course, other people can think about it however they want. But it's a well-known fact that you are the main reason that it was able to be saved. Above all else, you were the Kamadake #1's captain, Sena. No matter how you evaluate yourself, that is an immutable fact. Ringo said. Is that so? Sena decided to accept the evaluation of him by the Jurians and pledged in his heart not to fail to honor that evaluation of him. Whether or not you accept the various multiple women being assigned to take care of you in public and private is ultimately your decision, Sena-sama. Please take time to contemplate how you want to live your life as a private individual, Ringo said. She knew that decision could be extremely overwhelming. Sena's influence had become too strong on the world. He already had the same influence on the public as the head of state. To protect his privacy and themselves from Sena and their own influence on the world was an impossible task for anyone. Eventually, he would need to be granted national asylum, or for him to have the same level of defense as a major nation. At that point, Sena's privacy would be completely gone. Actually, he was already under 24-hour surveillance. He was constantly monitored and had secret escorts attached to him. At any moment, dozens of escorts could rush in a matter of seconds if there was an emergency situation, but it wasn't visibly noticeable. The only way for him to ever have privacy again would be to go to a place isolated from this world or to turn the world into his enemy. If he wanted to stay in space, he would have to accept being monitored. I'll think about it carefully. Yes, please do. At that moment, the two became silent while looking in each other's eyes. It seemed as though time stopped for the two of them. Yua. Mikage broke the silence. Mikage turned to face Sena and motioned as if she wanted to be picked up. She's up again already? Oh! Since Mikage is awake, do you want to come with me for a stroll around the outside of the house? This is the Kamiki's area. It gets sunny early. The sunrise is a wonderful sight. I would. Tenju was a tremendous tree. Although the area of the royal family was at the top section of Tenju, the altitude difference with the peak of the tree was about 2 kilometers. In the areas of the 4 royal families, each day's scenery is different. The Kamiki family area faces the sunset. Let's go see it. NB was isolated from Sena and left in the Kamadake in the residential area. It had transformed into Kirchi, who was in the area set in spring of the 4 seasonal areas, commonly known as during the spring. It feels good. Kirchi muttered while looking at the scenery in front of her. The place where she resided was a small valley in the mountains. Similar to the place where Tenchi's house was, but it was a place like a garden that was smaller than that. It was a peaceful place like a meadow in a fairy tale. Kirchi was doing the construction work to build a house on the slope facing the south side. She had conducted a ground survey, picked a firm place, cut trees, built stone walls, and built a foundation. While sitting on the stone wall, she took in the scenery. You seem to have had some fun, haven't you? Washa came to Kerchi's house that day after the vacation at Imuam ended. Thanks to you. I am very happy. She handed Washu some chilled barley tea and smiled with a flushed face. Sena had already gone to sleep, and the outside scenery was restored. So, what do you need today? Sitting opposite Washu on a sofa, Kerchi took a big deep breath. Because Washa came all the way to her, there was a possibility that something special had happened. Oh, don't be nervous. I came because Eri is on vacation, so I'm here on her behalf. Washa said. Oh, is that so? Kerchi relaxed and breathed a small sigh of relief. Even so, she was in front of a legendary philosopher. Her back was tense and her posture was still correct and proper. But, thanks to you, I got to enjoy mine. That's more Eri's doing than anything. Sena seems to have enjoyed it. She pointed to the room where Sena slept. Are there any problems with Sena? It's nothing bad. Calm down. I'm sorry, but this life was not eternal. Someday it would end. Having him visit you was originally meant to fix Sena's deep consciousness as a form of psychotherapy, wasn't it? Washa said. Kerchi nodded. And it has brought good results to Sena. His spirit has stabilized as expected and has grown to such an extent that a lot of big traumas have been resolved, so we're seeing about having a little more of that integrated into his normal consciousness. Really? That's a big step. Kerchi had a mixed expression of joy. That's because Sena would be gone from this virtual world. What I mean is, you won't have to be NB anymore. I'm thinking about giving you a living body. Since the problem with your father has not been solved, you'll still have to use NB when going out in public. The body design is nearly complete, and the link to your astral shouldn't be any problem. Well, really? Thank you. Please give your thanks to Eri. I'm just verifying her work. Yes, Kerchi said over and over again and again while wiping away the tears. Washi waited for Kerchi to settle down before she started talking again. If you have a body, you'll also need a place to live and daily necessities. That is true. Oh, how embarrassing. I never thought about it that far. Well, it's no wonder you didn't since you have a virtual body, but that would mean you will need money. Do you have any leftover from being on television? You had human rights, so they had to have paid you, right? The portion I had saved was used for reparations at the time of my disappearance. In other words, you're broke now? No, I've been paid by Eri for my time, so I have some savings. But that will be put towards building my body, won't it? Oh! What's the point in having Eri build you a body if you can't maintain it? But, then, don't worry about that. Think of the money used to build your body as a consultation fee. When Eri builds it, the patents she gets on it will more than pay for whatever she had to spend to make it. Philosophy professionals were involved in many important projects. Naturally, their budgets were also enormous, and collecting money for the budget was organized enough to make even large projects move. Even if she gave Eri her pocket money, it would be like a billionaire buying canned coffee, not even a drop in the pond. Besides, AIs with astrals were rare. This was also an opportunity to gather important data. Either way, Eri wasn't losing any money on this project. If you want to live in a house, you should build a house in a private area of the Kamidik. You may use a house in the space for staff, but because other people are always coming and going, something could go wrong. But what about the budget to build a house? This place comes with an auto-build system and all the materials needed. You should already know that? Yes. There is manual data in NB. Let me look at it for a moment. If you enter the data for a house, the design of the house is easy to customize. You can use any furniture in the inventory list of the Kamidik. I've added in quite a lot of variety, so make use of it. The items Washu had thrown in were diverse, and there was more variety than even the biggest mall in the Galaxy Academy. There were super luxury goods and prototypes that had turned into antiques that were no longer available. If there are things you want elsewhere, you can use your savings to get them, so relax. Don't worry about paying Eri, okay? Well, if that's the case, if the others don't mind, then I don't mind. Sena would want you to use it. It's no trouble, and if you need money, just sell some of these things to someone and I'll give you the patent proceeds off of it. But some of the things here seem quite expensive. They're just prototypes and free samples and things I own the patents for. It's all storage junk to me. I went without it for 5,000 years. I have no use for it, and it's only normal that I have to free up storage space as the years go on. But who do I sell it to? Who will receive the money and manage it? Washisama, you don't have any known heirs. The MMD has a management foundation set up for it, so we will send the money to you, but you will never find out if you don't sell it. Is it okay to do so, though? I have been seen in many places recently. The amount that has been sent to me lately has increased, and if they don't want it, then they will just return it. Why haven't you announced your survival? Don't you need the money? I will do so someday, but there are still various problems. Well, how about sending it to a second-hand market through someone? If it's a product that is popular in general, you can secretly feed it to the second-hand industry, but then it can end up getting recycled. But if it's a military item, custom-made, general goods, or a prototype, you can't just go shoving it into the general market. There are things that need to be considered. Don't forget scarce resources are monitored for distribution. It's troublesome to get rid of certain things. It would be troublesome if it seemed suspicious and ended up getting investigated. The survival announcement of Washu would be like setting off a bomb in the Galactic Federation. It had to be done carefully and over time. So, how do you plan to reveal yourself? Well, my biggest concern is how do I do it without starting a galactic war? Don't you think that's more important? Oh! Yes, that truly is. She just hoped Washu's survival announcement would be made as soon as possible. In such circumstances, Kerchi decided to build a house. Kerchi, the situation of the ground is okay. It will be stable so you can start building. It was airy on the communication monitor. Do you really want me to do this in such a place? Washa said you could build anywhere, didn't she? Why build it in such a wide open space? How big are you going to make it? Well, I like it here. It's a small place compared to some other places. There is enough room, and above all, it is like the landscape of Seina's hometown. Oh, really? You should build a secret base in the basement for Seina. Arisama, I'd like that. Please do it for me. Kerchi quickly said. Ahihi, I'm sure I can put it in there. In other words, if she built it, she could enter it. Naturally, this was a private space for Seina. Seina and Fuku could approve entrance. Only those who were permitted could enter. Even if Seina was okay with Eri entering, Fuku would deny it. Gah, it won't let me. What's the big idea? It is natural for Fuku to keep you from building a dubious secret base in Seina's private space. Kerchi sighed in her mind. She began to get back to work. However, there was not much that Kerchi had to do besides check that what was being built matched the digital model. When the house is completed, we can move on to setting up the furniture. Kerchi was eager to get her own body so she could spend time with Seina. It's a small place, but it's a nice place. Seina, who went outside, looked around at the house. Although it was small, the lot it was on was about the size of 2 soccer courts. There was enough leftover space to put a mansion. However, it was very small compared to Tenju. The tree in the middle of the site that grew to look as if it was protecting the house was 50 meters high, but in Jurai, it was just a small garden tree. The tree's branches spread like an umbrella into a huge mushroom shape. I bet Mikage will climb this tree when she grows up. Mizuzaki has already climbed it. Oh, really? Ringo's story gave Seina a wry smile. Other than that, there were some garden trees and fruit trees, but it seemed a bit quiet. However, the view from there was wonderful. It's beautiful. It was still a bit early in the evening, but as Ringo said, the sun was trying to hide behind Tenju. It was as if there was a total solar eclipse. The inside of Tenju was dim and its outline was brightly shining. In the dimly lit places there were several streaks of sunlight, and below it where the sun was unable to completely reach, the light looked a bit like stars. Yes, really beautiful. Ringo gently snuggled up to Seina. Mia. When the sun finally hid behind Tenju, Fuku came running from behind Seina. Oh! Fuku, welcome back. Fuku jumped over to Seina and rushed up to his shoulder. Are the others with you? Mia? Fuku was confused. At the same time, they noticed that a message probe was floating up to them. We are sorry, but Yuzaki didn't want you to be disturbed, so they only sent Fuku over to you. A short message was played, and the probe disappeared. What? Should I do something? Seina muttered as if he was at a loss. Well, I'm here to help you, so you should be okay. Mia. Fuku was picked up by Mikage, who began swinging Fuku like a rattle happily. Oh no! Stop. Sana immediately stopped Mikage's arms from swinging. Mikage, please let Fuku-chan go. Fuku, are you okay? Please don't hurt her. She didn't mean it. Ringo and Sana were desperate to separate Mikage and Fuku. Maya. Mia. But Fuku, who had been angry at Mikage, suddenly burst out laughing, instead of getting angry. Sana and Ringo were taken aback by her unexpected reaction. Mia. Fuku gave herself over to Mikage. Oh, dear. Mikage started swinging Fuku again. Meow. Maya. I guess everything's alright then. It seemed that they both enjoyed it. Ringo and Sana stared at the scene in a silly manner. The wind got cold, so they went back into the house. Mikage laid down on the bed with Fuku, and Fuku laughed as they played together. I understand why Mikage is happy, but she didn't know why Fuku, who was being treated roughly, seemed to be so happy. Ringo stared at Sana with a puzzled face. I don't know why, but Sana explained the game Fuku played with sand on the beach and how she jumped into weeds. To be honest, I don't understand why things like that entertain Fuku, but if she's happy, I have no complaints. Is that so? Better to not think too deeply about it. As long as they're happy, I guess it's okay. Ringo said, and then she stood up. I will prepare dinner. Mikage-sama will need milk soon. Can I leave that up to you? Yeah, I can manage it. Several hours had passed since the ceremony began. They had almost made it to their 50th tree. Now in front of Kariko was a young tree much smaller than the one before. Its height was a little over a meter, just under Kariko's chest. How pretty. Is this Kyoko's older sister? Funaho glanced at the tree. It must have come here recently. A second-generation parent tree is, of course, a first-generation tree. The germinated bud grows up near the parent tree until it gets bigger. Then it's transferred to this place. Noix Kyoko, however, was budded and grown in the same first-generation unit. It was a somewhat special case. Hello, Kariko greeted the tree like the others. Oh! She felt something that sounded like a voice. Well then, let's go to the next one. Funaho bowed and headed for the next tree. She went to follow when suddenly a cry similar to the scream of a child sounded in Kariko's mind. It was the young tree that was crying earlier. The little tree hit Kariko with a delicate nerve light. Don't go, please don't go. Oh my. What is this all about? Susan looked puzzled, but Funaho and Sito seemed to notice the reason. They looked at Kariko and the young tree. It must have been shy. Sito laughed. Oh, I see, so it panicked when she went to leave. Susan smiled. Royal trees were like children, yet this young tree was still like an infant or a baby. I am sorry, I didn't notice. It's okay now. We'll be together forever, don't worry. Kariko gently stroked the young tree while remembering how she did the same thing to a young Sana in the past. And the next moment, the second-generation trees began shining nerve lights all at once, like when they had seen Fuku. The girls were taking a quick break in a simple accommodation room that also served as a resting place. Besides the light coming down from the hole into the basement, there were many bright bioluminescent plants that lit the area. Extra lighting plants were planted in areas where training was carried out, so there was no problem traveling in the basement of Tenju even in the middle of the night. The resting place was near a hillside about 100 meters up on a route. It was in a crowded area with many facilities installed in other routes that were linked by multiple suspension bridges. Kanamitsu, it's still early. Why aren't we still traveling? Considering where we are, it's better to rest and depart a little earlier in the day to get to our destination. Depending on the time of day, the wind blows either weakly or very strong, so we should go when it is as calm as possible to ensure our safety. I've heard some information that worries me. Information that worries you? Yes, ants were spotted in a nearby resting area. Do you mean nursing care ants? What a strange name for an ant. Is it dangerous? Unlike Hakuren's group, Amain's people knew nothing of Jurai's local creatures. They're large ants, about a half a meter long. Are you joking? You got to be kidding, right? It's okay, they're not carnivorous. They keep and raise animals to get manure to grow the mushrooms that they eat. No way, so does that include human beings? Yes, but not usually. Recently, a group of small goats often used for breeding moved somewhere else, so now it seems they're going after people. Are there any other dangerous carnivorous animals we should be worried about? Well, there are several kinds, but they rarely attack people. In a sense, Jurai's strongest creature was its human beings. Nearly everyone was a fighter in Jurai. They could beat lions and tigers with their bare hands. If a young child was wandering all by himself and no one was around, maybe, but for the most part they were left alone. In the meantime, there's an open-air bath here. Relax, because tomorrow is going to be a pain in the ass. With that, Kanamitsu went outside. Well then, should we have dinner? No, let's go take a bath before that, you all smell. Nene said with great emphasis. The bath accommodation was in a neighboring tree. They crossed over to it using a suspension bridge. The bath was spacious. There was room for a considerable number of adults. Different kinds of trees collected water from the underground and air and heated the water, purifying it and circulating it. It was a common system in Jurai. The carpet moss covered the whole bathroom. The hot water was nice and the moss in the water was soft and fluffy like velvet. The scent of the room calmed one's nerves. Why are we trying to climb so quickly? Well, honestly, if you think about it, well, it's just Seina, Ringo-sama, a baby, and Fuku. I don't think anything too bad is happening up there, do you? Nothing will happen, Jaikirin asserted, as if it were a matter of fact. Seina and Ringo are both reasonable people. Maybe if it were just the two of them, I would be worried, but with Mikage-sama and Fuku there, nothing's going to happen. Well, I agree, but I don't think anything would happen even if they weren't there, Ryoko agreed. If there was doubt before, it could now be said that they all had the conviction about it that Jaikirin did when she asserted that nothing would happen. And so, tension in the room completely melted away. But don't you think it's a little too convenient? Nene chimed in. A small round of booing came from the other women. Everyone is always with Seina, so a little advantage now won't be any good for her. It's a good thing Kuriko isn't here. If she knew, she would have rushed all the way there by now, dragging us along with her. But the scenery is nice here, so I'm going to relax. No, I need to rush so I can complain about to-do. Don't you want to complain to Yuzaki-san? That's the case. But I want to soak in the amazing scenery a bit. I'm sure it won't matter to you either when you do. Anyways, let's eat and rest up to prepare for tomorrow. Before you do that, everyone should clean off the sweat from today. Nene held her nose and grinned. Kuriko, Kuriko. The young tree seemed happy. It called the name of Kuriko, who had become its partner. You need to give it a name. Have you thought of one yet? Sito said. Yes, Kuriko said as she looked at the young tree quickly. Your name is Mizuki. Mizuki? Yes, Mizuki. 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 It seems to like it. Let's hurry and get ready for the transplant. Sito said, placing her hand on Kuriko's shoulder. All right, Mizuki-chan, I'll see you later. Kuriko, where are you going? I'll see you soon. Wait quietly. Okay, Mizuki will wait for you. Such a good child. Kuriko quickly left. There was no need to hurry, but she didn't want Mizuki to get anxious. Sito, I know you were planning on delaying the formal announcement of Kuriko joining the royal family earlier, but what about now? You thought she would only get a third generation, but she got a second generation. Isn't that worth celebrating right away? Susan said to Sito. Perhaps. I would think Azusa would agree, but let's consult him then and arrange for it. Yes, let's. Thank you for everything today. Kuriko came close to Susan and bowed. Today was one of the best days in my life. Usually, once the ceremony of choosing trees was done, and then it was reported to the royal family who were waiting outside the door that there was no problem in the process by the trees, and when the day ended, they would celebrate by gathering all the important people and presenting the new tree and owner to the citizens. Usually, though, the tree wouldn't be shown off until after transplanting it to the unit and assembling the exterior of the ship. Officially showing off the tree ship was done with second generation or higher trees at least 1 week after the ceremony. However, in this case, they needed to prepare the tree for the transplant right away, so it was urgent. Thank you, but please excuse me, I must be going. Kuriko, Funaho, and Sito deeply bowed to Susan as he headed straight out to ask Azusa. Kariko and Funaho were at the gate in the studio above the Imperial Tree Room. This was the gate where the trees were taken out of the chamber. The reason for that was that it took time to set up the second generation or higher tree's core units, because they never knew what kind of tree would come out. The unit was customized according to the size and shape of the tree. It took time to make the interior as well as it was a special custom-made item. In the case of the third generation, candidates were usually determined in advance, so preparations were possible. Mizuki's unit was made using only basic parts because it was urgent. The biggest problem with that was the size of the terminal, which accepted the neural light used to control the external unit. In Mizuki's case, since the power of its nerve light was weak, there was a possibility that it couldn't control the ship well if they used a normal-sized terminal. So, they installed a terminal of the smallest size with a variable metal arm. Ordering interior parts is impossible until an adjustment of the terminal has been completed. I'm sorry, but Mizuki-chan must be patient for a little while longer. I'm sure it won't mind. Let's get started. Funaho and Kariko placed themselves away from the central ring plate. Please, let's begin. At Funaho's signal, a ring-shaped plate divided into several layers and started rotating. It was like a puzzle, and a circuit diagram emerged like magic. The central space began to distort, as if to respond to it. Then the schematics of a tremendous number of force field circuits were activated at the top of the plate. The light flashed in rainbow colors and a black on the ground spread like a circle. Wow! This was a different kind of space where the roots of the royal trees stretched to absorb energy. The force field circuit diagram deployed in front of them kept it fixed, and it suppressed the outflow of energy to the outside. If suppressed, the energy out only glowed faintly, but if it leaked out, the energy was enough to destroy a 100 light-year radius around Jirai. Mizuki-chan, can you hear me? Kariko. Is that you? Yes, good to see you again. The upper part of the center space fluctuated, and the fragrance of the royal trees came out of it. The spirally distorted Mizuki slowly descended on some ring-shaped parts. Mizuki's roots were covered with something like black mist in some places, where it was assimilating and drawing in the black space. Are you all right? Kariko asked, worried. Ouch! It's okay. It's just experiencing the ripples caused while stabilizing the space. Please don't worry me with surprises like that. The rings stabilized around Mizuki. The black space disappeared in the direction from which it appeared. Space undistorted, and the force fields dropped one after the other. Are you okay? Kariko and Funaho walked towards Mizuki. Yes, I am all right. Good, then let's adjust the receiving terminal. Do you know how to do that? Mizuki released a nerve light towards the terminal. The metal arm started to move quickly, and the position of the terminal was fixed in only tens of seconds. Yay, we did it, Kariko. Thank you. You did great. Let's scan this position and then get to making the decorative unit, and then we have to make the key. Are you ready? A monitor was launched next to Funaho. Kariko was familiar with the old carpenter who worked exclusively for the Masaki family. I've never worked with a young tree as small as Mizuki-sama. I don't know what to do in this case. The workman twisted his neck while looking at the scan of Mizuki's data. A tree and its master make a decoration called a key with a branch cut from the tree so that a spiritual link can be made even if the distance between them was great. Usually, jewels made from amber from the solidified sap were added. With ordinary-sized trees, there are many branches to choose from, but it's difficult with young trees like Mizuki. Its trunk was thinner than normal, and so were the branches that would normally be cut. Noik's Kyoko was even younger than Mizuki, but Kyoko had no official key yet. Its mobile terminal substituted for the key. However, with Mizuki there was no place to put a terminal body. Oh! Wait a moment. The old craftsman noticed something and began looking at past materials. It seemed that a solution has been found. He immediately raised his face with a bright expression. With young second-generation trees, we can use the part where it used to link to the parent tree. We just need to find where it was attached when it was a sapling. I might be able to use it. But won't that make it impossible to link with the parent tree? Is it okay to do that? The defense of the parent tree is no longer necessary once it's transferred to the unit, so it's not a problem. Usually, it gets incorporated back into the trunk as it grows, But Mizuki is still so young that it should still be there. Kariko. Here, it's here. Mizuki sent a nerve light from a leaf, like a signal. Oh, this. In the vicinity there was a half branch with no leaves coming from the trunk. It was encrusted in shining amber droplets. That seems to be it. Mizuki-chan, would you please give me this? Oh, yes. Please take it. All right. Thank you. Please be patient a bit longer. Kariko cut the trunk around the short branch. I am sorry. Did that hurt? Kariko asked while stroking the cut surface. Funaho quickly moved Kariko's hand away. Try not to touch it too much. In front of Kariko's eyes, a thin purple sap flowed out from the cut surface. The sap that comes out from the cut surface is designed to stop the invasion of bacteria, so it's better that you don't touch it. Kariko. Don't worry, I'm alright. Really? That's good. I have all the things we need now, so I will get the branch processed. Kariko-chan stay and talk with Mizuki-chan. Funaho took the branch and headed for the transfer gate. Kariko relaxed and sat next to Mizuki. Hey Mizuki, aren't you lonely now that you're away from your mom and sister? A bit. Thank you for asking, Kariko. No, thank you. Just wait till tomorrow. I'll introduce you to my friend. Your friend? Yeah, they're a bit different from you, Mizuki-chan. They're Seina Yamada's ship's terminal. I'll get to visit when we come back home, right? Oh, yes, that's right. Kariko remembered when the Kamedake arrived at Jurai, and the trees greeted Fuku. I'll make sure we come back soon. This Seina Yamada person, do you like them? Mizuki was surprised and screamed at Kariko's surprised voice. Kariko, are you alright? Did I do something wrong? Oh no, ha ha ha. I was just a little surprised. I'm not angry with you, Mizuki-chan. Mizuki needed a bit of time to be able to accurately grasp the subtitles of its master's behavior. Really? Yes, really. Would you like some water? Kariko quickly stood up and scooped the watering pail from the gardening items she had brought. The soil on which the tree was planted was supplemented with an adequate amount of water from the canal around it, so there was no need for watering, but because Mizuki was still a small tree, it was fun to be able to water it. She remembered asking Noik, who was also the master of a young tree, about it. She poured the water on top of Mizuki. The water poured and out, and the mist created a small rainbow. Mizuki also put out nerve lights that looked like crackling fireworks. Yay! Kariko was relieved to see Mizuki happy. Thank you for the meal. Mia. Seina and Fuku finished dinner. It was really delicious. Do all royal people like Noik and Sasami cook so good? Aika was the exception, but instead her garment sewing was comparable to a skilled craftsman. Not everyone is good at it, but it's Sito's policy that we be taught well. Ringo seemed to be happy while cleaning the dishes. Oh, please let me help. There's not much to do. If you want to help, please wait for me to be done, then you can help me give Mikage a bath. All right. After she finished washing the dishes and washing and removing her apron, Ringo entered the living room and held Mikage. Seina, can you help me? Yes. Seina got up and went to the bathroom. The bathtub was filled with hot water that was steaming up. There were no partitions in the room, but the flow of air was controlled so there was no humidity. It's fairly wide. The bathroom was quite large compared to the size of the house. A veranda was placed just outside past the bathtub. The outside was not very well maintained. Still, the view of the scenery outside was breathtaking. Wow, that smells good. The interior was all wooden and smelled wonderful. How are we going to manage this? Looking around, he suddenly realized he couldn't make sense of how they were going to bathe Mikage. The bathtub was quite deep, so someone would have to hold her, and another would have to assist. What's wrong, Seina? Oh, Ringo. Actually, I'm confused. How do we put a baby in this bath? Oh, that's odd. There's supposed to be a small wash tub here, but Ringo also searched around with Mikage, but she couldn't find such a thing. There isn't anything like that here. What about in the kitchen? Seina and Ringo imagined washing Mikage at the same time as running the sink disposal. No way. They shook that idea from their heads. Maybe you should do this without me? Yes, please, Fuku, come with us. Mia. Seina alone went back to the living room. But as soon as he left, he heard Mikage crying. A drenched Fuku came to call Sana. Oh, what's wrong? He followed after her and asked at the entrance of the room. Mikage-sama won't stop crying. Please help me out here a little. It's okay to come in, Ringo said. Sana breathed heavily and entered inside. Ringo wore a bath towel around her body and was immersed in the bathtub. Yoa. Wah. Mikage was crying but stopped as soon as she saw Sana's face. She reached for him. Yua. I think she was missing you. Is it okay if I get in? Yes, but please get dressed like I am. I understand. With no room for confusion, Sana headed for a changing room, took off his clothes, wrapped the bath towel around his waist, and got in and was handed Mikage. Yua. She started crying again. Well, maybe she wants me to get in as well. Yua. It can't be helped then, can it? Ringo scooted up next to Sana. Mikage looked at Ringo and Sana and started laughing. That's weird. It seems she cries unless there are two people with her in the bath. Maybe she's worried. Or maybe. Ringo felt shy. She realized it was possible that Kanemitsu and Yuzaki always bathed Mikage together. Oh wow, the two of us here like this are just like them. Ringo blushed in embarrassment. Fortunately, Sana didn't notice and chalked it up to the hot water. Except for the bath towels, they were naked, but her swimsuits and immuum exposed more than that. Without that experience, she would have fainted from too much embarrassment. Ringo, shall I wash Mikage-chan? Sure, I think the water is the right temperature. Sana got out of the bathtub with Mikage. Ringo picked up the contents from a container of nearby baby gel and started washing Mikage. As expected, Mikage was struggling, but she seemed to be in a good mood. Ringo soaped her up, then rinsed her with hot water, and then they got back in the tub. Mikage seemed to feel comfortable. In the dressing room with only Ringo, Mikage didn't cry. After they changed her clothes, she fell asleep. Sana, I'm going to go put her to bed. Please make yourself comfortable. Here you go. Ringo brought cold tea to Sana. Thank you. She had on a thin yukata and her hair was wet. Combined with the smell of the boiling water, she was twice as pretty as usual. Ringo was an attractive woman, even though it was not as intense as with Amain and Jaikurin. She was still quite a woman. Calm down. Calm down. Sana looked over at Mikage and Fuku, who were sleeping, to ease the tension. Like on Immuum, Jurai's starry sky was beautiful and without air pollution. There were only a few lights lit up on Tenju. It was like a huge Christmas tree. Calm down, calm down. In countries like Jurai, few people had experienced battle more than Sana, especially those born in the last 100 years, which had been a comparatively peaceful age. And above all, Sana was the man who had defeated Yuzaki in a ceremonial battle. Although ordinary men and women were likely to be connected with this momentum, Sana had yet to make a decision about his romantic life, and Ringo was a princess of the royal family. This felt a bit like trying out a relationship with a royal family member before committing to anything. It wasn't half bad. Tenju is beautiful at night, isn't it? Do you see the imperial palace on the top? The place slightly below it is the place where the Kamiki family lives. Although the other royal houses can't be seen from here, they are at about the same height. Kariko should be arriving back in the Masaki area right about now. Oh, so the ceremony for choosing trees has finished successfully then? Yes, Kariko-sama's tree was named Mizuki. The link will be done with Fuku-chan tomorrow. I regret to say that it seems her ceremony will be going unannounced at this time. Ringo looked at Tenju. This time, her tree is a second generation. Normally, Tenju would have been illuminated, full of parades and festivities that would have gone on through the weekend. Is getting a second-generation tree such a big occasion? Sana looked curiously at the sight of Ringo, who was enthralled with the idea. Of course! The average ship is a third generation. If someone gets a second generation or higher, they get top priority to become the Jurian Emperor. If it's a first generation, it's unconditional. He's the next Jurian Emperor. So, Kariko has a right to inherit the throne of Jurai? There are currently 6 people, including Kariko, who have the second-generation trees, and Yosho, who is on Earth, has a first-generation tree. Prior to that, Azusa, the current Jurai emperor, got his when he was still very young. so the possibility isn't zero. Is that so? Sena felt as though Kariko had suddenly gone far away from him. The light was shining above Tenju in the Imperial Palace. The distance between where Sena was now and where the court of the Masaki family was seemed like the difference between himself and Kariko. You can see her tomorrow. Ringo grabbed Sena's hand. Well, I guess that's right. The warmth of Ringo's hand swept away Sena's depressed mood in a matter of seconds. He could not deny feeling a slightly unscrupulous feeling, but you could chalk that up to his youth. Oh, that reminds me, what happened to Amain? Their communication with the outside is blocked, so no information has come in. Anoka is unable to tell me anything. Is something stopping your ship? As long as a command doesn't endanger the life of its master, our royal tree must follow the will of higher generations. Perhaps Sito has ordained an information blackout from Mikagami. Sito-sama, how dare you make Anoka do strange things? Ringo clenched her fist in anger. That's too bad. Yes, but from the information I've gotten, I think they're probably in Tenju's basement. Ringo replied, smiling, hiding behind her fist a bit shyly. Considering that Kanemitsu and Nene are also with them, I don't think they'll be back here before tomorrow, so we can enjoy this situation. Judging from Yuzaki-sama's expenses, I think she likely dumped them in the tourism athletic course in the basement. Ringo seemed to have inferred that from the flow of money. Moreover, her prediction was correct. It was difficult to keep that secret using Sito's budget. Will they be okay there? Although it's a full-fledged uphill course, with bioenhancement, it's not a difficult course. So it's like hiking. The only one with anything to worry about is Neji-sama. But since Kanemitsu is on escort duty, I know there will be no problem. It will just take a while to climb. Actually, it will take quite some time. So, everything's okay? If you have the opportunity, check it out. It's the place where the name Jurai came from. The view is amazing. Really? I would love to see that. Wait, what's going on? When Sena said that the majority of the lights that were on Tenju disappeared, we have to restrict the amount of light to protect the plant growth cycle. Oh, I see. Sena thought about it. This cottage only had one bedroom. Moreover, it had only one bed. I'll sleep in the living room. Ringo, please sleep with Mikage and Fuku in the bedroom. I can sleep anywhere as long as I have blankets and a pillow. Okay, sounds like a plan. She handed a futon to Sena and began to get ready for bed. Returning to the living room, Sena began spreading out the futon. As much as I hate to have to use this, it's amazing. The mattress was pure white with no spots. It was soft and fluffy. The outer material had stunning Jurian patterning on it. Even Sena could tell this was an expensive item. It made him nervous to sleep on it. Now that we've locked the door, we're trapped in here, just me, Mikage, and Ringo. Sena got up quickly and went out to look around the outside in the unlikely event that that wasn't the case. What is Sena doing? Ringo looked at the sleeping face of Mikage and Fuku and noticed Sena looking around outside. Ringo first thought that Sena was going for a walk. Ringo knew that this was a secure place. The meaning of Sena's actions were not immediately clear to her. Is he? But from him looking around, she soon realized that Sena was looking around to make sure everyone inside was safe. Ringo felt the inside of her chest getting hot. She was driven by the impulse of wanting to embrace Sena, but she desperately diverted her eyes from him and looked at the face of the sleeping Mikage and took a big deep breath. Hey now, whoa. Ringo somehow pushed the impulse down and bowed to Sena with gratitude and thankfully jumped into the futon. Thinking that Sena was protecting them made her feel relieved, and at the same time her chest was so warm and her heart was beating so fast she couldn't sleep. She was happy with things as they were now, and she seemed to almost be crying. In any case, she needed to calm her mind to sleep. It seemed necessary to divert her thoughts from Sena, which occupied most of her consciousness. Ringo began rechecking the accounting status of this quarter. Now it was time to think about how to avoid waste instead. It was a sad occupational illness, but it was better than Sena occupying her consciousness. After looking over a few accounting items, she came up with a good solution. Ringo fell asleep with a satisfying smile. Yua. When she fell asleep, Mikage woke up and started crying. Mikage wanted milk and started crying when Sena finished checking outside and had just settled into his futon. Sena got up from the futon but hesitated to enter Mikage's bedroom. Mia. 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 Fuku came into the living room. Fuku jumped and grabbed onto the sleeves of Sena's sleepwear and desperately pulled it. Sena lifted Fuku up and headed to the bedroom. Ms. Ringo, what's going on? He came into the bedroom where Ringo was holding Mikage. Sorry to have you woken up, Mikage wanted milk. Oh, I'll go get some. Sena headed to the kitchen immediately and came back with a baby bottle. Mikage stopped crying and began to drink the milk. I am sorry to have kept you from sleeping. Sorry to trouble you. Oh no. Fuku came to wake me. Fuku, you were worried about Mikage, weren't you? Mia. Fuku was watching Mikage drinking milk. You must think of her as a younger sister, don't you? But Fuku, you were born later. You're actually the younger sister, Fuku. Sena talked to Fuku while stroking Fuku's chin with his fingers, but Fuku kept watching Mikage. Ringo gently tapped Mikage's back after she had finished drinking milk. She burped. Sena took the baby bottle and tried to head to the kitchen. Wah! Mikage reached for Sena. Fuku desperately pulled on Sena's sleepwear hem. Fine, I'll take you with me. Ringo handed Mikage to Sena. As he began to leave, Mikage began to shake and cry and Fuku began to pull Ringo's hem. Maybe it's the same pattern as when she takes a bath? Ringo approached Mikage as a test. She stopped crying and the two looked relieved. Does that mean? Is she scared of nighttime? Maybe so. Won't you stay here until Mikage sleeps? Of course. Sena and Ringo laid Mikage on the baby bed and sat in the bed looking up. Yua. Mikage gladly laughed and looked up at Sena. Fuku also lay down next to Mikage and looked up at two of them in the same way. Then Mikage slowly closed her eyelids. Fuku soon fell asleep too. Sena confirmed they were asleep and took the baby bottle and gently tried to leave the bedroom. Mia. Fuku cried, and soon Mikage woke up and began to cry. Fuku. Don't wake Mikage-chan. Sena quickly returned to his original place to appease Fuku and Mikage. After a long time, she went back to sleep. And then Sena waited for a bit and left again, tiptoeing this time. Mia. Fuku cried like a high-sensitivity warning device. Mikage got up and burst into tears. Fuku, damn it. Sena and Ringo sighed. I understand, fine, I'm not going anywhere anymore. Mia. However, she was wary of him leaving, so Fuku was not going to go back to sleep very easily. After they laid in the center of the bed, Fuku stared at Sena and Ringo as if she had something to say. Maybe you're saying you want everyone to go to bed. Mia. It seems that Sena's answer was correct. Fuku smiled. All right, Sena, better do as Fuku says. Ringo said, smiling. If Ringo was okay with it, Sena was okay with it. There was no escaping the situation. They had resigned themselves to their fate. Fortunately, because it was the adults around them that created such a situation, Ringo would have no trouble being accused of a chastity problem for this. Of course, there was also no doubt in their minds that this situation was ridiculous. But the immediate problem was, how can I sleep in this situation? Their hearts beat so fast they could hardly hear their thoughts.